Today, we've officially launched Reflow. Reflow is inventory optimization to identify overstock, slow-moving, and obsolete inventory. Distributors have millions of dollars sitting in inventory, but most cannot clearly identify which products are creating exposure or what action to take. Reflow turns their existing ERP data into specific recommendations on what to return, transfer, or liquidate. We leverage traditional machine learning combined with cutting-edge AI modeling to look at inventory, sales history, and vendor buyback agreements to suggest areas to put dollars back at the bottom of your P&L. So I'm here today with Conor McNamara, one of our senior AI engineers who led the team that built out the Reflow. And we're going to go deep on how Reflow is built, the impact it can make, and really Conor's experience that helped him build and model this solution out across his team. So Conor, before we hop in, maybe a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. As far as intros go, my name is Conor McNamara. I am an AI engineer here at Continuum. I've spent most of my career in the supply chain since college, so about 10 years ago now, working for major Fortune 100 distributors. Excited to be here in the Continuum space where we can apply all of the cool powers of technology, AI, machine learning to the broader audience instead of just one distributor. But been working in supply chain problems my entire career, and I'm oddly passionate about inventory optimization, which is something I realized after moving over here.
Yeah, we always say we're the strange ones who focus on the most difficult challenges. So Conor, the distributors all have an ERP today. They probably have some forecasting tools, reporting tools. Why does this problem still exist? I mean, in the ERP, you could set mins and maxes. Why is this problem still here?
It's challenging because as distributors scale and grow and mature, so does their inventory, right? So it becomes just a sheer volume issue. It's hard to have the visibility and the pulse on what's going on in your warehouse and across all of your different warehouses as well on a day to day. I mean, your staff is busy, making sales orders, purchase orders, doing both sides of the funnel there. And often it's hard to reconcile a more wholesome view of what's happening in the warehouse within an ERP. There's a lot of different parts of the inventory warehouse. It sits in the middle of the asset acquisitions and then the sales orders flowing in inventory out on the other side. So it's hard to have a grip on what is there, why is it there, so on and so forth. So visibility is a huge component. That's not something that's easy to do within the ERP itself.
I find it interesting because a lot of these companies will already have some sort of purchasing solution. And this challenge of optimizing inventory after you've already bought it seems to be kind of a problem that takes that a little bit further, right? Almost a more complex problem to solve with all these different vendor agreements. Different vendors have different policies of what they'll take back. Is there requirements of creating a purchase order of greater or equal value? I guess I'd be curious, what are distributors not getting today from their current forecasting tools or their current purchasing tools?
What Reflow provides that distributors are not getting from their current forecasting and purchasing tools is the second half of the pipe. So forecasting is obviously very challenging. Everyone does it differently. I'm sure most larger distributors will have, the finance department do forecasting, as well as different other departments, maybe the data science team if they have one. Everyone forecasts differently, and it's challenging to accomplish a true good forecast, period. Assuming you have a good forecast as a distributor, all that does is show you what parts might sell. That's it. Now, there's the whole second half, which Reflow really targets, is the action behind that forecast. So taking that, balancing it with your current inventory levels, having some buffers and adjustments, being aware of your safety stocks, your mins and your max, and your vendor return policies. What are you allowed to return? What aren't you allowed to return? To provide a list of not just recommendations, but actions that you can take to help alleviate the strain on your warehouse that these low history, not a lot of invoice, not a lot of purchase order parts are just taking up space and affecting your bottom line and losing value year over year as they eventually reach EOL.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I think when we started this piloting with a couple customers, we thought that this was really going to be all about slow moving inventory. And I think we had a couple aha moments, and I think you kind of predicted this, but um, this is not just slow moving inventory, it could be overstock. So, can you talk a little bit about what happens once we've connected that ERP data? Like, what's actually happening under the hood to be able to come up with these recommendations?
Sure. So primarily we are sourcing off of a series of different tables, but you can think of it in the whole supply chain funnel. So over here, we have the purchase order. The asset team goes to the manufacturer and buys some stuff, right? So we pull in that purchase order information as that's a demand signal. If we're replenishing supply, that means that we are selling that part. That's a solid demand signal. Now, under the hood, there's a lot of implications as far as POs go. Maybe there's minimum order quantities associated with it, different units of measure, so on and so forth, different warehouses for those POs. But that's one of the primary demand signals. Then on the flip side, we have the invoices, right? What is booked, what is sold, and how much money have we made off of that part, right? So not all the time are they linked. Certainly they are sometimes, and we capture those, right? If a purchase order is linked to a sales order, that will become an invoice. That's part of it. But sometimes we're just buying purchase orders and we're selling parts that we have available. That happens too. We also take in a bunch of catalog age as well too, as a part of it. So we can monitor how long things have been sitting on the shelf, what the velocity of these parts are, how quickly they move at, what are the turns, all of these, classical metrics that distributors use to gauge their inventory level and a part's performance. We consolidate all of that into a giant history over 5 years of their lifespan, right, as a distributor. So we bring in all of the purchase orders, all of the sales, all of the inventory analysis there, and we create a view, one giant table with all of the demand forecasts. And by giant, I mean, we're talking upwards of 350, 400 columns if you were to represent it as an Excel spreadsheet. And then what happens is we'll train a forecasting model on it. So we won't just train one model and say, this is our forecast, which is what a lot of people do. We do ensemble forecasting. So we'll train a bunch of different models that are tried and true statistical methods, but we're putting a little machine learning in there as well too. And that's kind of the cutting edge part of our forecast. And we minimize the exposure to error and do that via ensembling. So we'll take multiple models that really are geared towards minimizing error metrics, but they're different error metrics. So then we have a very wholesome prediction. If all of our models agree that this part is a fast mover or a slow mover and that this is the forecast of it, we have a lot more trust in that forecast, right? But that's where the forecasting stops and the real work begins after that. So then we go back to the ERP, get the inventory information, and we balance the current state of the union of the inventory across our demand forecast for the future. So we forecast out a quarter, right? And then we can see, based off of our current inventory levels, what are your months of cover on this forecast? Are you short? Are you long? And we can recommend, based off of the surplus of data that we have, what your next step should be. Does this fall within a vendor return window? If so, let's action it. Is this non-returnable? Maybe we should look at this and try and release it to a market or have a conversation with one of our vendors around it, right? Is this something that's one part needs to be returned, or are we talking thousands of parts with, hundreds of thousands of dollars associated with it? Freed up working capital that can be put into other parts of your business, maybe more fast moving asset allocation, maybe scaling up more warehouses, whatever it needs. As long as that money comes back to your P&L, you can free up capital to grow your business.
Yeah. Inventory transfers as well. How do you optimize and move the product to an area that's actually going to sell?
Yeah.
Very much aligned to that. So I think the recommendation is useful, particularly as teams are spending dozens and dozens of hours on a quarterly basis trying to get alignment across their organization. Hey, should we return this? Should we not? Debating back and forth with branch managers or regional managers. And we're still left with, the human element. The problem is they have to do this today. And not only do they lack the tools to be able to do it, it takes the time to go do it. So distributors still have to act on it, right? They know, hey, I have these vendor agreements with my vendors so I can return these. How does Reflow make it easier to actually act on this?
Yep. And that's the key dollars right there, is taking the action. So that's what our product is geared towards. We provide you can imagine a table, right, where we have top down based off of whatever you want to sort by: vendors, dollars, quantities, so on and so forth, branches, locations, and you can just filter through to make this recommendation set as actionable as possible, so that it's a list that you can just run down and analyze. And you can dismiss things, right? Like, oh, I know that this part is not returnable and there's no action associated and it's really small and no one really cares about it. Like, let's just take that off the list. Fine, it's gone. You can move on to the next item. So you have a top-down order of impact, right? The way that I've viewed it in the past is we sort by dollars. What will affect our bottom line the most? What will actually trigger that recouping of that value?
Yeah. And I think one of the greatest things that the team has built is just the one click and you can create your return PO.
Yep.
And so there's really no forgetting about it, and there's no reason not to go do it now. It's not like now I have to go create this return to my vendor with 100 lines in my ERP. You click play and it ends up in your ERP, and the email is sent to your manufacturer, waiting for that final approval to be able to ship that product back. Dollars hitting your bank account.
Exactly.
So, hey, in these initial engagements, what have you seen from an outcome at these distribution organizations?
Sure. All of our forecasting models are different, and that's kind of where we start with Reflow, with the forecasting model, so that then we can take the action steps. We've seen quite a lift over traditional forecasting models. We advertise at 10% gain, but ultimately we've seen upwards of 30, which orders of magnitudes more. So all the numbers that I'm about to spew really should be higher, but we like to be conservative, right? And not over promise, but over deliver instead. Ultimately, we have seen different pilot customers with, let's say, $7 million on their inventory current state of the union, being able to recoup somewhere around $500,000 there. And that just scales out as you have more inventory, right? We've also run pilots with customers where they have $90 million worth of inventory, and they're able to recoup millions of dollars of dead inventory as a result of this. It's just surfacing these problems that everyone really knows exists, and then allowing you to simply just take action on it instead of just having it sit there in your warehouse and continue to gather dust while you're trying to work with your finance team to get the reports out of your ERP, or your data science team to draw that in and to make all of this. So yeah, the impact is significant. And over my career, I've seen this work both ways with, returns and asset allocation as far as these forecasting. And it can have as big as an impact as you want it to. And that's the power of putting the decision within the distributor's hands, right? We're arming them with the data and the information that they need. At a click of a button, you can take action over all of this as well. So it's just a matter of someone going through there and working it, which is way simpler than trying to get all of this information from everywhere, create the visibility, and go for it. That's handled for you. All you have to do is action it.
Yeah, I think about it like, distributors have a lot of systems of intelligence, whether it's BI reporting, of any sort, but they lack systems of action.
Exactly.
And when you can combine the two, the system of intelligence that holds all the intelligence of vendor agreements, whether your mins maxes are actually real or not, and you can make that same system the system of action, so that there is no excuse when a team is running around 1,000,000 miles a second to press execute and let the agents go to work to execute that transaction. That's really, in my eyes, how you unlock the dollars inside of your organization to make sure that the thing that needs to get done actually gets done. And so, for us as a business, Connor, as you think about from a product standpoint and product perspective, why do you think reflow is such a natural extension of what we do here at Continuum?
We are targeting reverse supply chain logistics, which is frankly one of the hardest problems and not the way that a lot of these ERP users are designed. There's also a bunch of other components of it. You got to talk to the manufacturers and put in all these different POs for the vendor, as well as the ERP itself. It's a challenging thing. The supply chain works really well one direction, sort of breaks down at a million different places when you're going backwards. And reflow just enables the visibility of the warehouse and allows you, as you said, just to take that action and just let Continuum handle the rest. That's why it's a super natural fit. We're doing those vendor returns anyway. Just the difference is right now, the distributors are deciding what to do and then going into Continuum, and they're already enjoying the fact that we're able to take all of these actions in one place through our system. So we can leverage that same system, but just back end the intelligence of reflow behind it, what you should be returning, why your window is closing soon, better get your stuff together and, launch it out, right? All of that intelligence just empowers more transactions through the ease of Continuum more. So it's an incredibly natural fit.
Yes, couldn't agree more with you, Connor. I think it's a complete natural extension of what we do. If something's moving back up the supply chain in B2B, we own it. And we're already doing vendor returns, just primarily around defectives and non-stocks on a one-off basis. And our customers really were saying, hey, can we do more? Can we help optimize? And this is a problem that so many distribution organizations have. And I always say, if you can save $100,000 or sell $100,000, there's a 25x impact on saving $100,000 in supply chain. If you're running at a 4% net operating margin, you put $100,000 straight back into your pocket by optimizing your inventory. And $100,000 is quite candidly pretty conservative, depending on your inventory levels. Click the link below, get more information on reflow. Feel free to reach out for a conversation. We'd be happy to engage and show you what reflow can do for your P&L.